And it's a record year for the Rolex Fastnet Race 2019.
What's significant about the Rolex Fastnet compared to other big races is, I guess, the start. Unlike anything else.
3,000 people taking part in this fantastic race.
It has 400 boats for a start and then exiting through the Hurst Narrow on their way to the southwest of England.
Stand by, deploy, deploy!
It's a challenge just to get everyone out. It's a spectacle as well, nothing like it. One of the important things to think about is that with a lot of small boats, a lot of Corinthian boats, we want to allow them the opportunity to take the best time of the tide, try and get them away first, and our bigger boats at the back. For those less experienced, it's an adventure. It presents itself with a number of great challenges, and offshore racing is about the challenge. In the back of everyone's mind is the opportunity to potentially win. Any sailor with any crew, well seasoned, well practiced, can have that opportunity to win. Everyone's ready to race, and that's the best part of this.
The Rolex Fastnet Race, which starts from Cowes on England's Isle of Wight, has never been more popular. A compelling blend of tactical sailing along the English southwest coast and offshore drag racing across the Celtic Sea to the Fastnet Rock and back, the 48th edition has attracted another record fleet, obliging the Royal Ocean Racing Club to close its entry lists within 5 minutes of opening them.
We have this mad rush to try and enter the race, nearly 400 boats. At the top end, we have the 100-footers with their professional teams, and at the bottom then, the smallest boat is a family from Lymington. It's the quality and diversity that makes this race so popular.
100 feet long, Seng Huang Lee's SHK Scallywag is not only the fleet's largest entry, but one of its furthest travelled, arriving from Hong Kong with one objective.
We're the highest rating IRC boat in the world. Winning on IRC is almost an impossibility, so our goal every time we go out is just to win line honours.
Standing in their way is George David's Rambler, the current line honours holder, promising a rare clash between two of offshore racing's best-known monohulls.
We've raced Rambler once in 2015 in the Rolex Sydney Hobart race, and it came down to the wire. Rambler's going to be strong, reaching, heavy wind, so they should have a few legs on us there, but we should have quite a few legs on them in the lighter stuff, especially early on in the race, so it'll be a boat race.
At the other end of the entry list, and on the other side of the Celtic Sea in County Wexford to the northeast of Fastnet Rock, farmer and lifeboatman Keith Miller has been preparing to make his Fastnet debut, along with 16-year-old daughter Beth, the youngest competitor in the 2018 Round Ireland race.
I suppose I did most of my boating in lifeboats. In the last few years, we bought the sailing boat, and I like the challenge of it, and I like the teamwork, because farming, you're very much working alone, whereas when you go sailing, you bring a crew with you, and which is more interesting for me.
Their boat, Andante, is a little over a third of Scallywag's length, and likely to require all the resolve and resourcefulness a skipper deploys on the farm to get round the course.
I find the intersect between sailing and farming that you have to have a plan, you have to know what you think you want to do, and it very rarely works out because something always gets in the way, and you have to keep changing your ideas and going with the flow. Well, sure, every skipper always has concerns about safety. I mean, we're going to be around 75 miles offshore at the furthest points, but I know what the challenges are. I think I'm ready for it, and I know when to turn and run.
Another Fastnet debutante, but somewhat better known, is Gypsy Moth 4, moored not far from the colour and clamour of the Solent at her spiritual home at Buckler's Hard on the Beaulieu River. It's from here in 1966 that Sir Francis Chichester set out for sea trials before completing the world's first ever solo circumnavigation of the globe, arriving in Plymouth 9 months later, an achievement for which Gypsy Moth became the most famous yacht in the world.
Because the circumnavigation was such big news, when he was approaching the finish, they laid on free buses and trains from all over the country to get as many people down to Plymouth as possible. It was a massive achievement back in the 60s, and he was probably one of the biggest celebrities of the decade.
Gypsy is now run and maintained by a trust, and it'll be a crew of 5 who take on her next adventure, the yacht to which Chichester held no particular emotional attachment and wanted to sell shortly afterwards.
Sir Francis Chichester not in love with the boat, shall we say. I think his famous quote when he got back was he felt that it needed a crew of 3, a chimpanzee to do the running rigging, a man to navigate and an elephant to steer. But it got him round and it's still sailing today. Gypsy Moth has been gradually building up to the Fastnet, which is one of the most historic ocean races, and we felt it was time she played a part in that.
The route on which she's embarked will take the fleet down the Solent, along the headlands of England's south coast, past Land's End and out into the unpredictable waters of the Celtic Sea to Fastnet Rock off the southeast coast of Ireland. From there, it's a fast return downwind, the race concluding in Plymouth after 608 nautical miles, tactical choices at every turn. 388 entries leave for the start line on race day morning, most from berths nearby, others from further afield. Unleashed off the Royal Yacht Squadron like thoroughbreds from their stalls, 4 Ultime trimarans from France launched the 2019 Rolex Fastnet Race in spectacular fashion. Targeting average speeds of 35 knots and Loïc Perron's 2011 multi-hull course record, the Behemoths from Brittany could complete the course in a day. Adding further power and panache to the non-IRC fleet, a 20 IMOCA 60s sailed double-handed in preparation for the Transat Jacques Vabre.
3, 2, 1...
Borne away on an untypical southeasterly breeze, the first of the IRC classes leave on a reach. Spinnakers up in a colourful cavalcade, Keith Miller's crew on Andante among them. The biggest boats are last to be unleashed.
More pressure coming, more pressure building here.
Some 350 yachts already on the course to negotiate, along with the shifting sands and shingles of the Solent. Rambler takes the initiative, easing clear of her rivals in imperious fashion. Up ahead, the Ultimes are already racing past Hurst Castle in what promises to be an absorbing battle. For the leading monohulls, record-setting conditions are forecast later, but there are less favourable areas to negotiate first before they reach the promised land.
The typical Fastnet start is with a nice southwesterly sea breeze. This year it's a light southeasterly, which makes it very different, and as we head towards the Scillies it looks like there is an area of very light wind, and so there's going to be a lot of challenges trying to get through that light wind and into the good pressure.
5 hours into the race, the going is still good. Stalking Rambler not far ahead of them are David Witt's men on SHK Scallywag, looking for an opportunity to slip past their rivals in the lighter airs, threatening to ensnare the fleet in a few hours' time.
Going into the first night, pretty apprehensive because we've got a big ridge to get through, and how will the boats negotiate. This ridge will really determine kind of your exit and your first run up to Fastnet Rock. So a big night ahead for all the navigators, all the crews.
The forecast transition between the southeasterly and southwesterly breezes leads to a compression in the bulk of the fleet, while the larger monohulls edge their way north to find the best of the breeze. By the morning of day 2, there's a new leader in the race for line honours.
We've got Rambler a mile and a half behind us. We've got Wizard about 2 miles. The concerning thing for us is it's going to be 100 through wind direction, 28 knots. Both those boats are perfectly designed for that sort of weather. Hopefully we can stay ahead of these boats. You know, it's a good boat race. 2 miles between 3 boats.
The line honours battle among the multi-hulls is no less compelling, where Francois Gabard's crew on Massif are working hard to maintain a narrow advantage over Maxi Edmond de Rothschild, co-skippered by Franck Camat and Charles Caudrelier. Shortly after first light, the pair had rounded Fastnet Rock with their order reversed and more than 2 hours ahead of the multi-hull course record. After snagging a large fish on their daggerboard, Camat and Caudrelier then lose their lead on the return from the rock. But with the leading monohulls only now traversing the Celtic Sea on the outbound leg, the top 2 multi-hulls are already approaching the Scilly's inbound at over 30 knots en route for Plymouth. After a promising start, it's been a trying morning so far on Irish entry Andante.
Have enough wind to drive us against the tide. Tide is doing about 2.5 knots here now at the moment. Did very well last night. I thought we stayed up well with the fleet, but unfortunately it's all gone pear-shaped right in a minute, but it'll pick up in the ground.
It's not long before Keith Miller's crew is back on the move and making progress in their first Fastnet. Also now underway is another of the race debutantes, Gypsy Moth 4, whose electrical issues delayed her departure by 4 hours and at one stage threatened her participation altogether. French entries make up almost a quarter of the fleet, and they're already mounting a serious challenge. Making gains in IRC 0 is Bretagne Telecom. In IRC 2, it's Courrier Recommandé, led by the irrepressible Géry Trentesseau. One of 3 French sailors to claim the overall prize since 2013, he completed his first Fastnet as an 18-year-old. But despite frequent visits to England and Rourke's London HQ, his 2019 entry, his 15th, could be his last.
Le Fastnet, c'est une des plus belles courses au monde. Et moi, je la compare aux 24 heures du Mans. C'est une course très ancienne, mythique. Et même si parfois je me dis que je dois arrêter la course au large, c'est une vraie passion pour moi et pour mon équipage.
The English and French sailing communities have long been associated, to which many of the documents in the Rourke archives attest.
Le Channel, c'est notre jardin. Et la partie anglaise, c'est le fond du jardin. Et je crois qu'on la connaît très bien.
Indeed, French sailors won 7 out of 10 divisions in the last Fastnet. Success Trentesseau attributes to the Solitaire du Figaro, the tough French solo event that replicates the Fastnet's many demands.
Pour gagner le Figaro, il faut être un bon navigateur, un bon régleur, un bon barreur. Sur mon bateau, sur 8 personnes, il y en a 5 qui peuvent barrer. Il y en a 4 ou 5 qui peuvent régler les voiles, etc., etc. Donc il y a une culture. Nos équipiers ne sont pas des spécialistes, ils sont polyvalents.
Whatever his misgivings about his own physical endurance these days, the long-standing Rourke member and his crew are in great form and could yet carry off their 2nd overall title. On the tight reach across the Celtic Sea, Rambler is in her element and muscles to the front of the fleet. The last few miles to the rock are completed in 30 knots of wind and some of the toughest, most testing conditions of the race.
The approach to the rock can be very complex. You've got to be very accurate. There's a manoeuvre coming up. You know, all the people that have potentially been in their watch system are all going to get pulled on deck. You've got a lot of navigation to do. You've got a lot of tactics to do. The bow team are preparing the sails for the next leg. So it's always a busy time.
Chased by SHK Scallywag, George David's men reached the iconic turning mark nearly 90 minutes ahead of their own record for the outward leg, hoping the fast-reaching conditions they relish will prevail on the return. Scallywag's rounding proves more problematic. Caught in a squall, her crew try to change jibs, but are unable to react in time. Forced to deploy just their J3 for a time, they briefly lose momentum and round 17 minutes behind Rambler. Only just behind the larger boats, despite her size, is Wizard, David and Peter Askew's powerful Volvo 70. The US entry handled the first night transition better than anyone and has been relishing the fast-reaching conditions that followed, en route to becoming the provisional overall leader. Among the other monohulls in the fleet making the best of the favourable weather is the 78-footer Jetu. Watched carefully at one of the most distinctive turning marks in offshore sailing, she prepares for what promises to be a blisteringly quick ride home. Off Plymouth, the all-French contretemps between Massif and Maxi-Edmond de Rothschild is coming to a dramatic conclusion. After recovering their overnight lead at the Lizard, Francois Gabard's crew bared down on the finish line, with multi-hull line honours apparently in the bag. But having overstood on their last jibe and final roll of the dice, Franck Camin and Charles Caudrelier approached the favoured end of the line, foiling on a hotter angle. Massif are caught cold, and in a fading breeze, their arch-rivals snatch a remarkable victory. Crossing the line in 28 hours, 2 minutes and 26 seconds, they've knocked over 4 3/4 hours off the 2011 course record.
Ça a été une course très serrée avec Massif. Depuis le départ jusqu'à l'arrivée, on a passé le Fastnet à un demi-mille d'écart. On s'est vu quasiment tout le temps. Et voilà, très heureux d'inscrire notre équipage sur les tablettes.
As traffic picks up at the Fastnet end of the racetrack on the morning of day 3, the pace is finally slowing the battle for line honours at the other, where David Witt's crew have been discussing their options.
We've got, 30 miles to go. We're about 4 or 5 miles behind Rambler, and we've got to do something to slow them down. And the only way we can think of doing that is moving inshore, where if we can tempt them into a lighter area of wind, we can perhaps catch up a little way from behind. At this point, we can't give up. We've got to keep fighting and see if we can push it, squeeze it through at the very finish.
Deprived of the southwesterly breeze they'd hoped for, Rambler is slipping below record-setting pace, but is still able to cover any scallywag challenge without serious alarm. Just before 10 a.m. on day 3, George David's crew approached the finish at the Plymouth Breakwater to claim their second successive line honours title. Taking a day, 19 hours and 55 minutes to complete the 608 nautical miles, they've fallen short of the monohull course record, but have seen off rival Scallywag, who arrived 27 minutes behind them.
The tight competition with Scallywag started right off the line. When it was light, that's where they got the jump on us, and then when it got heavy, that's where we got the jump on them. We missed the record by an hour and 20 minutes. If we had a better sailing angle from Land's End to Plymouth, we would have had it easily, but that's sailing.
Third monohull home is Wizard, a strong contender for the overall prize, having kept up with their larger rivals all race.
They were never really able to get away from us. And when you can keep the big boats like that in sight kind of the whole way, you know you're going to do well.
For the bulk of the fleet, the streets of Plymouth and the welcome of the race village can't come soon enough. Even for experienced sailors like Jerry Tantasseau, leading IRC2, and Alexis Loison and Jean-Pierre Kelbert, eventual winners in IRC3, crossing the Celtic Sea is proving arduous and attritional, tough on people and boats. By the following day, as the trickle of arrivals, whether class winners, contenders or Corinthians, becomes a torrent, the list of retirements has grown to over 50.
It's been brutal. It's been a really tough race. Obviously a lot of wind, but then we've also had a really confused sea as well, and it made it really difficult for a lot of boats. Plenty of competitors have had to have a number of goes at it to finish. You can't expect to finish in your first go. That would be nice, but it doesn't always happen.
The retirements list is about to get longer. Keith Miller's crew on Irish Entry and Dante have been handling heavy seas and 35-knot wind speeds well, and are only 15 nautical miles from the Rock when their Fastnet comes to a premature end, courtesy of a broken backstay.
That's what gave. Shackle pulled out. This came down, missed Angus by inches. We were going so well. As a farmer, I deal with machinery failure every day, so it's nothing new. It's just one of those things. You do your best, you get the machinery into the best order you can, but still stuff breaks. It's life, you know. Somebody said that Division 4 really is the Fastnet. Superboats did the thing done in 2 days. Turn that into 4, 5, 6 days sailing. It's a whole different challenge. The Rock itself hasn't beaten me, I'll be back. The plan is to do some improvements on the boat, make her a bit easier to sail. We'll be back.
Another debutante who retires early after falling too far behind the fleet following her delayed departure is Gypsy Moss 4. Perhaps she too will one day make her triumphant return to Plymouth. Along with race veteran Jerry Tantasseau, who sweeps all before him en route to the IRC2 title and 5th place overall in what he insists will be his last Fastnet in a competitive boat. Of the 388 boats to start the race, over 330 have made it to the race village in Plymouth, their crews only now able to share and savour the scale of their achievement. It's not been an easy race for the smaller boats, deprived of the faster conditions so conducive to the 70-footers up ahead. And there's no surprise, only admiration and respect when co-owner Dave Askew's crew on Wizard are confirmed as winners of the 2019 overall title.
It feels really, really satisfying to win the Rolex Fastnet Race. I almost feel like I'm kind of living in a dream. I've known about it ever since I was a little kid. I came and did it 34 years ago when I was 22 years old. I was in complete awe when I did that race. Truly one of the most difficult, if not the most difficult race in the world to win. I mean, the level of competition is so high. In our world of yacht racing, it's a huge accomplishment. It's just something that I'll remember for the rest of my life.
Next time on Spirit of Yachting, we head to Mallorca for the best in inshore sailing at the Rolex TP52 World Championship.